What it do? It's ICU. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about this controller right here. It's called the Scuf Instinct Pro and it's made for Xbox and PC. Let's get into the video. So before we really start talking about this controller specifically, I do want to touch base with you guys as far as my experience on Halo Infinite and just an overall question of if I like using what you'd think to be the main controller that you should use on Xbox, and what probably the majority of gamers are using now today in 2022. I would say the majority of people are using PlayStation controllers over Xbox. Maybe not a large amount more, but probably 60% at least. So to say right here, this controller feels great. It looks great. All the buttons feel great. Joysticks feel great. D-pad is it's okay. To start, share, and this middle button, which I don't even know what it is because I'm not an Xbox guy, but it seems to be something for Xbox. Maybe it's upload or something like that. But let me say this. Overall, the controller is sick as hell. Now, let's talk about the experience actually gaming with this controller. When I first got back into town and opened the box, this thing had arrived a couple weeks prior to when I got here. When I first opened the box, plugged it into my computer, and loaded up the Xbox app version of Halo Infinite, I was having a great time using this controller. I really liked the fact that these can just be clickies and have all four paddles on the back. I really like having 4 remaps on the back of my controllers. I can deal with the 2, but I prefer to have the 4. So let me say this, guys. Overall, the controller is great when you're playing Halo Infinite on Xbox app. But if you're playing Halo Infinite on Steam, that's when things get tricky because the default settings for Xbox controllers through the Steam controller configurator aren't that great. So I'm going to show you guys a couple of things that you can do, and I'll probably make a separate video on this as well, so stay tuned for that. But the exact settings that work the best for Halo Infinite on Steam, because I think that's what the majority of people are going to be using these Xbox controllers for. Obviously, there's other people that are going to use them for other things, but let's focus on that. Alright guys, to start off, make sure your controller is obviously plugged in to your computer and then go to Steam. Go ahead and open up your library. First, what you should probably do is right click here on Halo Infinite, go to Properties, Controller, and I like to leave mine on default settings. I find that that will always pull from your controller configuration that you set up specifically for each game. But if you just go into the properties and you put it on Steam input, I think that pulls from some overall default that you've put for Steam as a whole that you can set up in the actual overall settings controller configuration here. Not sure if that's completely correct. If you guys know, let me know in the comments down below, but this is how I play. So I'll go over here to the controller configurator after leaving this obviously on default, so it pulls from here. And for the Xbox, I find that you have to adjust this. Now, if you plug in any DualShock 4, you'll be fine leaving it as default settings. It usually defaults to something called Gamepad, and on the DualShock 4, you'll be fine. We're not here for the DualShock 4, though. So come into here, go to Additional Settings, and set your curve to wide. It has to be on wide because otherwise, as you're turning the joystick, even if you just do it just maybe halfway, it really zooms you across the screen. And if you leave it on wide, it actually has like a gradual overall increase when you're using it. That's my best way to explain it. So yeah, hit done on that, and then you're good. Launch your game, go into the Academy, test out your controller, see if it feels better. Because if you are playing on Steam, I know a lot of people still want to use the Xbox controller. That's what I recommend. Maybe if you guys have made a video of your own, or you have a Twitter video that you're following that somebody posted of their Steam settings, let me know. I'll check it out and see what I find for that as well, because I'll be completely honest with you guys. This controller isn't my preference to playing even Halo. I like the DualShock 4 for almost every controller-based game that I play. Alright guys, I do just want to touch base overall how I do feel about the controller. I think everything about the controller is great. It seems like it's going to have great durability, to be completely honest with you. Just the way things feel, it feels like a solid controller. At the end of the day, this was a normal Xbox controller, I'm pretty sure, at one point. So they build pretty decent stuff. I would say DualShock is overall better. I'm a Sony guy. I like the DualShock, but this controller is solid. It's really solid. I wish you could just plug it into Steam and it would have good default settings and just work right, but when you're playing, at least on Halo Infinite, you really got to fine-tune those settings to get these joysticks to really feel responsive, versus on the DualShock, you can just plug it in and configure your in-game settings, and it actually feels really great. I'm going to make a separate video about the settings that I'm using for this, so stay tuned for that as well. And if you guys have any questions about this controller or think that I didn't touch base with something that is important about this controller, let me know in the comments down below, and we can maybe make a separate video about that. I'll see you guys in the next video. Please leave a like on the video, subscribe, and what else do you have to do? You better